So we've had some news about the Man City 115 charges case. The Telegraph reported that that might not be delivered now until the summer, the verdict in that. That is a message you've repeated over and over again in these conversations. So I guess it doesn't really come as a surprise that the verdict might be a while yet, given the complexity of the case.
Yeah, we're just coming into the early stages of when it really could have been coming out. And to be perfectly honest with you, if it came out on Monday, it wouldn't be a massive surprise. But likewise, it wouldn't be a massive surprise if it came out in June. Unfortunately, we are dealing with very complicated deliberations, first of all, but also just a very long, very detailed um, judgment that's needed and decision that's needed. If you listen to 12 weeks of evidence, it's going to take some time to write up your findings. Now, I do think the sooner the better for City, in terms not only in terms of the disruption to the club, but also just the likelihood that they've prevailed on the important stuff. I do think that if it went a very long time, say way beyond the summer, that would be a bad signal. Um, but right now, I think it's broadly neutral as to whether it's come out or not. I don't think you can read anything into that at all. I think any suggestion, and there was some suggestions, again apparently from people insiders. There was insiders that were apparently, or lawyers that were apparently saying it was going to be January. It was never realistic ever.
Mm.
I mean, I would go so far as to say possibly impossible. We always knew, even if you looked at how long an APT hearing took to get a result, that took 2 months, and that was a 2 week hearing, and it was fairly, relatively simple. So these things just take time, and people just have to wait, and it's irritating, but it's just the way it is.
Mm. And then Man City have now accused the Premier League of distorting the rules in Arsenal's favour and other clubs. Do you think they have a case of that, or how do you see that panning out
Well, I don't think that's what they've said. I mean, I
Mm.
think that they're making the point that certain clubs may not be voting on a purely objective basis in some of these votes about putting in place new rules, and they may be instead looking to make decisions that perhaps um, attack certain clubs. So City cannot have any issue with a club who votes in the way that it sees fit, right? So they nobody would suggest otherwise. A club can do whatever's in its interests. Um, that said, um, City obviously wanted to make the point that certain clubs are perhaps not solely thinking um, about their self-interest, but thinking about how they can um, damage one or two other clubs. I think that's what the accusation is. Not that the Premier League are doing it. I don't think there's been any allegation that the Premier League has applied its own rules in a unfavourable way to City at this stage. That may have happened in the 115 case. I don't know. And it may well happen in the future. But at the moment, what City have alleged in the main hearing is that the rules are unlawful and discriminatory. But I think what they were talking about in terms of noting Arsenal's position is really just about the way Arsenal have been acting and perhaps lobbying in the background as opposed to anything else. I think it's a bit of a storm in a teacup. There are bigger issues that the Premier League has got between warring clubs. Clubs are always going to be competitive with each other, and as long as they don't overstep the mark in terms of outright illegal acts or um, sort of uh, a pure favouritism from the Premier League, I don't think there's that much of a big deal. But it's perfectly reasonable for City to raise their objection. But I think they're making a point about getting things minuted, for example.
Mm. We've talked in the past about the Man City ticketing situation. The fans have obviously not been very happy about that, but now they've announced a ticket price freeze for next season. think that's likely forced by the fan pressure over the last few weeks?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you look at the counter situation where the fans say nothing, is there a season ticket price freeze? I would say definitely not. Therefore, the protest must have done at least something. So I think it's an achievement there. The bigger issues are still there. I mean, it is interesting if you look at some of City's ticketing prices. So the Aston Villa game is a good example because for most of the top clubs, Aston Villa is still a Category B game. Now, it might not be next season, but it has been this season. And that means that you get into quite a surprising situation where City is more expensive than Arsenal for the priciest tickets for individual purchase, i.e. not season ticket, but not hospitality. So I think that's quite a surprising outcome where you have a Manchester club being more expensive than Arsenal for the same fixture. And so I think, it's possible that City have got a little bit carried away with the pricing. I know myself, for some of the tickets that I purchased this season as a fan, I've been surprised at how expensive they've been. I think I had a general admission seat for Liverpool. It was a good seat, but I think it was £88 from memory, which is a lot. I mean, on any basis, if you were to look across the 20 clubs in the Premier League, £88 is a lot for any game. And so maybe City have just got a bit, a bit too expensive with various increases over time, and I think they just need to be mindful of the fact, and I'm sure they are, by the way, but they have to be mindful that they're building another, I don't know, maybe 10,000 more seats in that new stand, and that is obviously going to impact supply and demand, and therefore it may be that they're going to have to just be a little bit more careful with the price rises, or at least have more differential price rises, so that some parts of the ground maybe are frozen whilst other parts are brought up to a higher level to compensate for that. But ticket prices are an issue, as we've spoken about many times, across the entire, not just the Premier League, but across the entire sport. And it was brought home actually. If you were to have a look at the prices of the Champions League finals and the Europa finals this week, absolutely extraordinary prices. Talking about €450 for a Cat 1 ticket, I think it is. And that's not a ticket, by the way, that's spectacularly, it's a good ticket, but it's not like it's coming with any hospitality, meals, drinks, or anything. It's a ticket in the ground for €450 for one game. I mean, it's just absolutely incredible.